This segment of the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast is supported in part by Douglas Outdoors, serious rods for serious anglers. Go to douglasoutdoors.com and check out their new lineup of Era rods that retail under $100. Norsk Lithium, the lithium battery that you need is just a click away. Go to norsklithium.com and check out some of the lightest lithium batteries in the market with the best warranty in the business. Mariner Sales, located in the heart of the DFW Metroplex, Mariner Sales has the largest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories in North Texas. You can also shop online at marinersales.com. What's going on, everyone? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. As always, it's your boy Armando. This is the real life segment of a Bass Kayak and Beers podcast where we interview tournament anglers, content creators, and talk about bass fishing and kayak fishing and all that cool stuff. This week, we're going to be talking to Russell Truitt, who just won the Texas Bass Nation stop at O.H. Ivey, legendary Lake O.H. Ivey. And also Peter Huser from My Chaotic Fishing, who also fished that tournament and did pretty good. I also fished that tournament. Was happy with the results, even though it wasn't in the money or in the top 10. It was more like top 15, but still happy, especially considering how the tournament started. So we're just going to be diving and talking into about each one's day. I want to focus a little bit on the mental struggles that you go through when you're on a tournament and things are not going great. How do you kind of like get your mind and your emotions back in the game and try to salvage your day? I went through a lot of that. Seems like I've gone through a lot of that recently on tournaments. At the end, I've gotten some good results, but it's something that you don't always want to go through. I think for the most part, you want to have your day to be smooth and not having to struggle so much. But sometimes that's part of the learning curve, right? You have to like go through the motions. You know, for me, it was like not catching a bass on my first 5 events, then catching 1 or 2, then eventually catching a limit, then doing a 2-day tournament and not catching a 2-day limits and so on and so forth. So there's a progressive growth, and that's always interesting. So without further ado, let's start by bringing in Mr. Peter Huser from My Chaotic Fishing. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. I forgot something. Give me 1 second. Uh-oh. I know, right? Like I'm a nope, that's not it. That's not it either. Oh my god, what's going on with me? Here we go. Now we have a show.
There we go.
Can't start it without cracking a beer. So how you been, buddy?
I've been good, dude. I've been good. What an interesting weekend. I think it was. You touched on it a little bit, but kind of the mental fortitude that it takes when you're, having a long day. I was literally at a meeting with another bass club that I fish with, and we were talking about somebody who had a very similar situation where they didn't have anything alive well until literally about 12:30, and how they were able to just stick with it, and not spin out like a lot of people, probably do. And it's not a great place to want to find yourself in.
It's not. I think it's a kind of like rite of passage. Is that the word? Remember, English is not my first language, so I pick up stuff from cable TV. I'm that cable TV generation. But rite of passage, I think that's the term I'm looking for. It's a rite of passage. I sometimes actually feel bad in a way for people that like get it from the beginning. Like they've never struggled. Like, I don't know. Everybody struggles, right? But at some
point, that gratification of going through it, and then getting the success versus they just start the day and it's like no effort, success immediately.
Yeah. So it is interesting. All right, so let's bring in our next guest, the actual winner of this tournament, Mr. Russell Truitt. Thank you. First time on the podcast, Russell. Hopefully it's not the last time. How you doing?
Well, I hope not myself. No, I'm doing fine, thank you. Good to see you, Armando. Peter, how you doing?
We met
Yes, sir.
at the award ceremony. I haven't had a chance to meet you in person. I've seen you on social media every now and then on posts about fishing and all that. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Russell. Where are you from? What part of Texas are you from? And how did you got into bass fishing?
I live in Liberty Hill. I was born and raised here in the Austin area. So grew up on Lakes Travis and Buchanan, and fished with my dad a lot, or all the time. Back when I was younger, he loved to put out trout lines, probably more so for food than anything else. I don't know if he really enjoyed it, but I always enjoyed catching the bait. We bait them out with live perch and had a good time doing that. And started moving into bass fishing in my early teens, I guess. Dad wasn't much of a basser, but I'd make him take me out and we'd troll around a little 14-foot aluminum boat on Lake Travis and catch a lot of bass on the rocky points out there, and grew to love it. And that's just who I am. That's part of my life. So.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You must be excited about June 14th, right? Next tournament at Texas Bass Nation is going to be Lake Travis, right?
Yes.
Are you going to be there?
I plan to be. I do.
You live in that Austin area?
Yeah, I live in Liberty Hill. It's 30 miles north of Austin.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's
not here around
like
the Highland Lakes. What's that?
Some home field advantage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say.
I've only been to Ivey twice, and once last year, and then this tournament. So it was new lake for me, pretty much.
Nice. Have you fished O.H. Ivey before, Russell?
Once last year, and then this tournament this last week. So
was it the Texas Bass Nation last year at O.H. Ivey?
Yes, and that was
actually. You did last year?
I didn't place in the money.
Okay.
But I did. I placed in the top 30%. I think not too bad.
No, not bad at all. Peter, how did you do on the tournament? Let's go back to you, and then we'll start talking about pre-fishing, how pre-fishing went for everyone. So let's go through rounds. Peter, I know you pre-fished for a couple of days. How was pre-fishing for you? What were you able to find in pre-fishing, and did it ever translate into tournament day?
Yeah, I like that though. That was slick. We'll go down the leaderboard first before we work our way to the top. No, yeah. So I was there Thursday, Friday, and honestly, this year I've kind of changed my mentality going into it, and it's helped me kind of just slow down and just do a lot more kind of traditional fishing. Overall, practice was good. Covered a ton of water, like literally starting from way down at Elm Creek, being able to go all the way over to the dam, and then all the way up to Mid Lake, and then it was like I was running my equipment all day, and caught fish everywhere. Like they were biting, and so it gave me a good feeling going into the weekend, thinking, well, if we can load up early, and then maybe spend some time in some high percentage areas, we can either luck into a good one or see one on the screen, one of the two. And I don't want to say it didn't translate. I mean, I even on tournament day, caught plenty of fish, caught plenty of trash fish too, but never was able to find those bigger fish. I just didn't connect with them.
You know what I find interesting about O.H. Ivey, for all the fame that it has for big bass fishing, with was it Josh Jones? And
I saw him a few times.
And what's his name? Oh my God, I can't believe from Sixth Sense. Can't believe I forgot his name.
Oh, Dalton?
No, not Dalton.
Milliken.
Ben Milliken. I forgot his name. Yeah, really black there, right there. For all they've made that lake famous, and this is the second time I've gone. First time the tournament winner wasn't even in the 90s. This year, Russell, you got into the 90s, and it's low 90s. I'm like, I would have thought this would be like triple digits Lake Fork on its best day. But turns out O.H. Ivey is not as easy to catch fish. I mean, I guess unless you're using live scope, right? But being such a deep Clearwater lake, I was like, man, you get a lot of fish, but it's not the fame of like double digits. Now, Russell, you did catch 22, 24 inches or something like that, right?
Caught a 24 and a 24 and a half.
And a 24 and a half, yes.
So how was pre-fishing for you?
I went out Tuesday afternoon. I got up there and I'd done some map study and I checked those spots off on my maps, and I caught a few small fish, but it wasn't anything that I thought was any good. That was up around mid-lake. So I fished the rest of the day there, and I think I'd caught three keepers all afternoon is all. So Wednesday morning, I moved over to the other side of the lake, and I fished all day, and I caught 2 bass all day. Catfish, white bass, a gar. But Wednesday was a really tough day for me. I went back out Thursday morning and went down towards Elm Creek and fished down there. And I wasn't catching anything, but I got into this one area where the water was just super clear and I could see big fish. I think I counted 6 over 20 inches just cruising. And, I'd had 2 rough days. I was going to stay all day Thursday and fish Friday morning. I had to come home Friday before I went back up there Saturday. But, I was beat up. My pre-fishing was horrible. I had nothing to go with except those cruising fish that I had seen. And the only plan I had was to go back there and hopefully early in the morning that they would be biting, because that water is so clear. And when I found them, the sun was up high and, they weren't hitting anything, weren't even paying attention to me. But that's the only plan I had, is fish I had seen swimming around. So it was a really tough 3 days for me.
That is refreshing for me to hear that, because I went through exactly the same thing. Like, I went out Thursday was my first day of pre-fishing, and I found super clear water. I mean, it was on my graphs, it says 8 feet, and I could see the bottom, clear bottom. It could have been 10 feet deep, and I could still see the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some of the biggest bass I've ever seen in my life. And I was telling you, we and Peter ran into each other tournament morning at the boat launch. And I was telling you that story, Peter. It's like, I saw the absolutely biggest bass I've ever seen. And it literally would come up to my kayak. And what I think, I'm not a marine biologist, and this may be completely wrong, but what I gathered was when I was wondering why this big bass was coming up, but it wouldn't change my lures, it would just circle around my kayak. I figured it has to be nesting, and then I noticed a ball of prey bass just around my kayak. So I'm thinking, I must be right on top of the fray, and that's why she keeps coming up. And then was what I was assuming some male garter, which is a lot smaller. But I was like, holy crap, this is the biggest bass I've ever seen. That thing had to be, I mean, if it wasn't 10 pounds, it was got to be close. But they were not, like you mentioned, they were not biting anything. The only bite I got, it was a big one. It wasn't that one. And I lost it, was on the Ozark rig. I threw in a Zoom Morning Dawn color, which is kind of like not pink, but kind of like a reddish, something between red and pink. If you know the Morning Dawn color, you know which one it is. And I got one huge bite out of it, but because I was throwing on a light setup, it wrapped me up around the twigs and immediately was able to come undone. So I was like, well, I don't think that's going to work, even if I'm getting bites on it. But the exact same thing that happened. I had Thursday, I caught one 10-incher on what is the a carry jackal? What is it? It's like a lipless jerk bait. It kind of floats. Is it Akachi or something like that?
The Arashi glide.
Arashi glide, that's the one. I actually got it. It's a knockoff of that. I got it on the Dark Horse Tackle membership box, and I caught one there, and I had another one that I got on a different box from Mastery Tackle, and I used that one on tournament day. But yeah, it's refreshing to hear, for me to hear that, because that's exactly what I went through. Did you see, Peter? Were you fishing? I know you caught a lot of fish, but was there ever were you in that super clear water? Were you more in the stained or really muddy water?
Yeah, no, it was clear, and I try not to impose the way that I think about stuff on other people because it can be a little bit rough. But like, there were two instances where I followed a fish, that I saw on my cheater box. There were two different fish, in two different areas, and man, I must have followed them, and they were roamers. Russell, I don't know if that's, if you classify them the same way, but it was kind of, they were in an area of the lake where I
Yeah.
thought where I thought, okay, a big one could potentially be in this area, but it wasn't like, oh, they were on this tree, or oh, they were right next to the drop off. And so they're swimming along,
Yeah.
maybe about 12 feet down, and Armando, I don't know why I didn't think to throw some of my morning dawn stuff. The only morning dawn thing I threw was one of my hair jigs that I've had a lot of success with. Um, but man, it just like you said, Russell, they didn't care. I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
whether it was small hard baits or big baits, and hopefully you'll have some technical difficulties right now because I even threw a crappie jig at him. Thinking that it would be so nonchalant that he would just be swimming by and decide that, just, and I didn't care. Didn't care. It was bigger than, there's a lot of carp in that lake too.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yes, there
But
are.
their
Crazy.
return on scope, it's different from a large, like 10 to 12 pound class
More
bass.
density on the carp, I'm assuming, right?
There is, yeah, actually some of the larger bass, and some of the ones that I've caught, whether it's out west or in East Texas, like when they get to that 10 plus size, you see the more of the shape of the fish, but it's a little bit lighter return. Whereas, your more plentiful 2 to 4 pound bass, they're just that brighter return. But so I was fairly certain, but again, like I said, I don't like to impose the way that I think about it because in my head, I'm like, well, at the end of the day, you were holding that fish, so you don't know what the F it was, So it's kind of hearsay, but yeah, there were two instances, and that was the same behavior that I experienced.
They just wouldn't
And
care. I mean, they're
I
so
hit,
pressured.
yeah, I hit
Yes.
one with a hair jig, and I hit the other with another jig that I've caught suspended fish with scoping. Literally hit them, and they didn't seem to care. That was the other thing that I also assumed it wasn't carp, because like carp, if you tag a carp, like
Oh yeah, they're
they'll
gone.
yeah, they're gone. And so it didn't exhibit that behavior, when I actually made contact with the fish either. So it's like, that's why you get these stories of guys like Josh Jones, and they'll follow a fish around for 8+ hours until they can get it to bite. I can see that. I can understand that.
You know what's interesting now that we talked about being pressured. Like Russell, I'll get your thoughts on this, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, Peter. Like 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, a jackhammer was a cheat code, right? If you would get hit. I can't get a bite on a jackhammer since I can't remember when. And it's not that I stopped throwing it. It's my ultimate confidence bait. Even when I know I'm not catching, just bombing, casting it, and just reeling it in, kind of gives me sort of like a little like peace of mind, even though I'm not gonna catch anything. Sometimes I'll just throw it just to kind of get the stress out of me. But it is. What are your thoughts on it, Russell? Have you ever thrown like a jackhammer or maybe not that one, or a specific bait that you notice is like, dude, it's kind of so popular, like maybe the bass are just done with that bait?
Yeah, I've got a lot of money invested in jackhammers. Uh, I used to fish co-angler side on the FLW, and the pros would throw that jackhammer and catch fish and I had, the knockoff brand chatterbait, vibrating jigs. Then I started buying the jackhammers, and I don't think I have ever caught a bass on a jackhammer. And I throw them because you hear that's what people are throwing and catching them on. So you got to have it tied
How
on
do you
and
not?
try. But they don't work for me.
Really?
Uh, I prefer my soft plastics, slow moving baits, crankbaits. I'm kind of old school because I'm old. But
you don't look that old, Russell. How old are you?
I'll be 60 in July.
Really? You look a lot younger than 60.
Yeah. Drink, smoke, all that. not really.
The recipe for a happy life. Right?
Yeah. No, I've been blessed with a good life, so
That's good.
I try.
So can you say that? So you've caught plenty of fish on like the OG chatterbait, but not had any memorable success on a jackhammer.
That's correct, and I haven't had that much success on the old chatterbaits.
Oh, even that. It hasn't ever been one of your go-to deals.
Right. I think confidence in what you're throwing, what you're using is huge. And to this day, I prefer a small willow leaf spinnerbait over a chatterbait or
Like an
vibrating
H&H.
jig. Yeah, H&H is perfect. Yeah. They do get hung up easy with that double hook on them, but they do catch fish. So.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Peter? Have you noticed that? Are you a big, even if it's not chatterbait, maybe it's a whopper, plopper, or any other bait that you feel like it's ran its course and now fish are just too used to seeing it?
For me, that would have to be. I don't feel very strongly about about anything particular. I mean, a rattle trap kind of, I know a rattle trap catches fish, and I got plenty of friends that, that's their deal, just even long bombing a rattle trap up to shore near docks and just yo-yoing it back. Like, and I have spent days where I go out, near riprap and, donate a bunch of them just, you kind of get in your head. I mean, you touched on it a moment ago, right? Where even if you haven't caught fish in a while, you've got a jackhammer in your hand and you're bomb casting and reeling, like, because that's your confident bait, you feel like you're efficiently
Yeah.
fishing, covering water, because right? You feel so strongly in your mind that if I am around a fish, I'm going to catch them. And I tried to develop that with a rattle trap, and it's unfortunate because I mean I'd much rather have 6 hooks in them than one on a swim jig. But yeah, I'd probably have to go with a rattle trap, man. That's the one that I don't know that I necessarily believe that bait's gonna run its course, but fish certainly do get conditioned to baits. I mean, I mean, I've experienced it in smaller private ponds. I've experienced it in smaller public ponds, like, and on both ends of the spectrum, you can go, you know, with your confidence bait and fish a pond or a certain area of the lake that you regularly visit with something. And if you do that a lot, you're going to find that over time, there's going to be the level of how effective that was.
Yeah.
I believe it does decline. I've personally experienced it does decline. But then you go to, I've gone to highly pressured ponds where people are like, oh, there's big fish in here, but nobody can catch them. And you just throw something wildly different, like not traditional tackle. And all of a sudden, it's like they've never seen a lure in their life. They're the dumbest fish you've ever encountered.
Right.
So that conditioning, I mean, it's real. I just don't know if I can fully buy into it, happening on such a large scale. Um, maybe on the clear water fisheries, I could buy into that. Russell, I mean, you were out there. Were you traditional fishing? Were you using electronics? Was it 2D mapping? What'd you have
No,
going
I
on?
do. I do have forward facing sonar now. Still
Mhm.
learning how to use it. I saw a ton of fish on that lake. I think majority of them were carp. It's I had some that would turn and chase my bait, but wouldn't take it. So I'm guessing that those few were bass. Tournament day, though, that did not come into play. I had seen those fish, knew how they were running Thursday morning. This is 2 days later. So I didn't get right up there on top of them. I stayed back off. And because the water is so clear, I just wanted to stay back away from them. And it worked out for me.
So do you think that's was going to be my question? What was your, and if you can kind of amplify on what you just said, what was the change that you made that you were able to now catch him where you weren't able to catch him in pre-fishing?
I think it was a color change. I don't believe color matters sometimes. I think profile and action and speed of retrieve is more important. But I constantly throw a green pumpkin, black flake, Cinco. That's my go-to. And Peter, like you're talking about, I don't catch near as many fish on that bait anymore as I used to. I think they've become conditioned to it. Even though it's a natural profile and a natural color, they just don't respond to it well like they did. So what I had seen in this area is a huge amount of bluegill, perch, and they had a dark color to them. And I switched from the green pumpkin Cinco to a black blue Cinco. Doesn't make sense in clear water, but I may be the only person that's throwing a black Cinco in that clear water. And like you were saying, throw something stupid and the fish will eat it. So that's actually what I was throwing. I used a weightless Cinco early in the morning. Second cast, I caught the 24-incher.
Whew.
Yeah, that was wild. I was so stoked. I've caught a lot of big fish in my life, and I don't get so excited as I used to, but I was just shaking. I'm shaking now thinking about it. It is exciting. And that was on the weightless Cinco.
Okay, let me pause real quick and ask you a quick question. So you're throwing a Cinco. You caught a 24-incher. I'm assuming close to 8 double digits in pounds. Unless it's a post pounder, which they could be paper thin and weigh 3 pounds. But either ways, what rod were you using? Were you using because if you're throwing weightless Cinco, I'm assuming you're using light rod. Because I want to know how that feels catching a 24-inch on a light rod, if that's what you were using.
No, I wasn't using a light rod. I knew that there are zebra mussels in the lake. I'd heard how bad they are and how they'll break the line. And I knew there were trees, submerged trees in this area. So when I came home Thursday afternoon, Friday, I re-spooled with 20-pound fluorocarbon on all my
man.
Yes. I
Yes.
knew if I hung a fish, I wanted to get it in the kayak. So I went 20-pound using a Kistler heavy, 7'3". Was it?
Yeah.
How were you
heavy
able to
casting
cast
rod.
it though? Like you had to
You know what?
long line
Hey,
that thing to
Armando,
cast it.
I got to tell you. So I fish with one of the older dudes that I fish with out in East Texas. That dude throws a weightless Senko on his bait caster. He's throwing 18-pound fluoro, and it's a medium heavy moderate rod. That just and he
Yeah, I'm used to it. It's Kistler
yeah
Helium. They're good rods. They got a good backbone, and I knew I needed something heavy to get these fish in through the zebra mussels in the trees. So that's what I was throwing. Threw it up there in about 8 foot of water, and let it sink. And I felt the thump and set the hook, and she got down in the trees. I got her out, got her in the net. Just super stoked. And
oh man,
yeah, that was crazy. I knew, man, God, thank you. This so much. This is going to be a good day, I think. 2 casts later, doing the same area, hung it looked like about an 18-incher, but it got off. And, start getting down a little bit, like, oh, no, I lost one. I need that one. I moved around. I moved about 50 yards. I knew there was a submerged rock pile, and there was shad on it, but all I could catch was white bass there. About 2 hours later, I came back to the same area. I had caught the 24-incher. I was, it was about 2 hours later. And within 20 yards of where I'd caught her, I caught the 24.5-incher. And that was a fight. I switched over to a Texas rigged Cinco, same color, but it was an 1/8 ounce weight on it. Pegged
8
weight.
ounce weight?
1/8.
Oh, okay. 1/8.
Yeah. Just enough to get it down in the treetops a little bit. And I was fishing out a little bit deeper, about 12 to 14 foot of water. And I hung a fish down in a tree, set the hook, got it up out of the tree, but I couldn't see it. It went back down in the tree again, even with my heavy rod and line. I got it up again, and then the third time I went down thinking, I must have foul hooked a big old gar, buffalo. I just couldn't get the fish up. And then I finally pulled her up, and I saw that it was a bass. And it was so scary knowing that I had a second huge bass on, and I was so scared I was going to lose it. But I got her in, and just amazing that I got her in. And it was 24.5-incher. So those are my first two fish, a 24 and a 24.5.
Look at that thing. I know it. I don't know if you can bring it
Oh
up.
yeah, I forgot. I usually do the
Look at that thing.
near the screen. Hold on.
It's huge. I actually weighed that one, thinking it was a double digit, maybe 10 pounds, but it only
You go
weighed
about 8.5.
794.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Were there spawning bass, do you think, or just?
I saw a few spots on the rocks that looked like they were cleared off a little bit, but there were no fish hanging around them nearby, maybe 10 yards away, but nothing right on what I thought might have been a bed. So, but I did see a guide boat come in there. It had the big platform up top, and they were moving quick looking. So apparently there were some beds in there that they were looking for. They never stopped to fish for anything.
Russell, I like to, for guys that have been, fishing as long as I've been alive, I love to be able to have access to kind of pick your brain, because there's so many ways, to approach a day of fishing. And so we can kind of narrow it down, right? So O.H. Ivey, I mean, you've got your main lake, down towards the dam, Elm Creek, all that stuff. And then you've got your river kind of up north, and you got all the arms in between. Do where you said you started with like the map, you did some map study, you know, was there ever a point in the way that you thought about attacking the lake where you were like, all right, I'm going to try to, I'm looking for spawning fish, or I'm looking for post-spawn fish, or I'm looking for, what was your thought process in terms of going, or was it just, I'm going to go look up shallow and work my way out deep and hit some interesting areas? And
Well, I was thinking it was a post spawn pattern, maybe even a shad spawn. So I started mid lake practicing, working road beds that I'd found on the map, and catching some small fish. Didn't see any shad spawn. The water's a little bit murkier up there, so you really couldn't see what was going on underwater. But that was my first thought, was it would be a post spawn or shad spawn pattern, which I guess it could have been going on somewhere else where I was not. But and then after I'd only caught the small fish in the dirtier water is when I decided to come. Well, actually, my game plan was to fish 3 different areas on 3 different days. And it just so happened that on Thursday I was down on the lower end in the clearer water. And, I'd fished the LBJ tournament also, and there was a bluegill spawn going on there. And that was really key to catching a lot of my fish on that tournament. It's fishing around those beds and having those fish cruising the edges of the bluegill beds. So after I saw the bluegill in this one area, I started fishing for that. Mainly trying to mimic the bluegill more than the shad. So you got to look for visual, what's going on the shore, what's going on underwater, and you just got to take it day by day, and try not to get any predetermined ideas on what you're going to do or how you're going to fish it. You just got to go with the flow and pay attention to your environment and make adjustments from there. That's the way I do it.
Seems legit.
That's awesome.
It's funny that we were talking when we were launching on Saturday morning. Peter, you and I and a couple others that were there, and we were talking about that we would have to ditch the traditional bait in order to catch fish, and that actually, for me, that was the same thing. Like I went on Friday afternoon. I was like, I'm ditching most of the traditional baits. Like I'm untying the jackhammer, I'm untying the spinner bait, I'm untying the Texas rigs, and I went to a store, and all I got was like the panorama from 6 Cents, which I've never tried. I got the Zoom Worm, the Morning Dawn. I bought a whole bunch of things that like I broke out what was the name? You just mentioned it a few minutes ago.
Oh yeah, the
Ariashi?
the Mega Bass Karachi.
Yes.
It's a little hard. Like
I did the Bill Lewis brand one, so it's not the Arachi.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Same
kind of
difference.
becoming like the chatterbait name. It's not really chatterbait; it's a bladed jig. But yes, so that style bait, just because same thing. I was like, there's nothing traditional. Like these fish are so in tune or so pressured with every single traditional bait.
I probably caught close to 30 fish on a freaking 10-inch power worm.
Saturday?
Really?
Saturday, I probably caught 5 or 6 of them on a power worm. Yeah, I was super nervous about going like straight across. And Russell, you don't have to disclose it, but like, so I launched over at Elm Creek, and a very productive place that I found was, if you basically cut diagonal across mid lake and go way out to, around an island in the river channel area, there's a big flat out there.
Yeah.
And I was using live scope to identify areas. So it was more using it for structure, right? Because I could side scan, right, and mark the edges of where the bushes were,
right,
or I could just cruise up to it, scope it, and say, okay, that area is barren, and then there's those little 2 to 3 foot tall bushes and stuff,
right.
And I cruised over there, but yeah, so on practice days and super productive, but on tournament day, like I was telling Armando in the morning, I was like, man, I want to get over there, but I was genuinely nervous. I was too scared.
Did you say that out loud? Because I think I heard you say that Saturday morning.
Yeah, that I was scared to just cut across it.
I heard
Dude,
you say
I was
that.
okay. So we know. Yeah,
because there was about
just
80 boats behind us.
Yeah.
There's just been too much stuff recently, man.
Yeah.
And I've got a really, really bright 360 light that, I mean, I don't know how, but I was out in the middle of the lake and I was covered in bugs. I've got a really bright light, but man, maybe it's just how much time I spent on the internet. I've seen too many dumb things happening.
Yes.
And even on the practice days, there were guys out there practicing, and I was like, man, these guys really don't like. There were 2 instances where I was like, I hope that guy, like, he saw me. You know what I mean? And I was too nervous to work my way out there, so I really only had about by the time I got to that area, only had about 2 hours in that area. But yeah, that was, dude, a 10-inch power worm. I don't know why I had him at home and had completely forgotten about him. And then when I was at Elm Creek, you go look through the local tackle shop, and I was like, why didn't I remember to bring these? It was just some tequila sunrise on
Tequila
a
sunrise.
316. Yeah, tequila sunrise on a 3/16 ounce, little tungsten worm weight.
Yeah.
I didn't peg it so that it can kind of have that little flutter as it sinks down. But
Yeah.
yeah, I caught, I mean, between Thursday and Friday, over 20 fish, and then on tournament day, like I said, I was only out there for about 2 hours, caught 5 or 6 fish in that area on the afternoon. Speaking of afternoons, Armando, did you tell Russell how many inches you had at noon?
So yeah, so at 1:30, I had this amount of bass caught. I caught one on that lipless fluke that we were talking about. Not fluke, jerkbait.
Jerkbait.
Um, that I saw a pot like lay down, and I figured there's got to be a bass. It was in a cove, and I was like, it's still early in the morning. So my whole mental struggle was like, I thought if I don't take advantage of that early window, uh, maybe a shad spawn, or if I can't find him early in the morning, I'm done. Like
That was
I
my
needed
thought.
to. I felt like if I didn't get my limit by 10 a.m., that was it. I was done. So by 10 a.m. comes in, I only got one bite and it came off. I actually caught like an 8 inch or two on that same bait. I was like, yeah, no, mentally, I was so out of sorts. Like I mean, I can't even tell you. Like I was not right. But I was like, one thing that I think that is such an underrated part about bass fishing, and I get that people think that bass fishing, that whole catch and release, is stupid. And why would you get up at 4 a.m. to to put yourself through this mental emotional anguish?
Right.
My explanation to that is it makes you a better person. I truly believe that when you are at that, you know, at the bottom, like the very bottom, like you put in 2 days, you lost some money in my case because I couldn't get, I own a small business. So those 2 days of pre-fishing, that means there's no clients for me to work. That's a considerable amount of money I'm not getting because I don't get paid for vacation. If I don't work, if I go on vacation, I'm not with my clients. That means I'm not making money.
Right.
I'm spending money, Airbnbs, all that, and all for to have one little 12-inch bass by pre-fishing. You wake up Saturday morning thinking, with the stupidest confidence in the world, thinking you're gonna make this, and you're like, why would I ever think that I'm gonna catch 5 bass if I spend 2 days without catching anything? So those thoughts start creeping in by 10 a.m. Like, you're an idiot. Like, why would you think you were able to gonna do good at this tournament if you haven't done well in pre-fishing? My God, you can see the fish, you can't catch them. But it's that mental fortitude of like, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna try my darnest to figure it out, and I'm gonna die on this hill, but I am going to try to figure it out.
Yes, sir.
Until 1:30, I finally decided, you know what? The only big bite that I got that came off was on that Ozark rig on that Morning Dawn Zoom not ribbon tail worm, trick worm. So I was like, well, I can't keep throwing it. It's so much brush. There's like, I can't keep throwing it on that setup. So I moved to a medium heavy. It was harder to cast, but after a few casts, I got it, where I can cast it and pinpoint it a little bit. 5 minutes, 15 minutes, I should say, into it, caught my first 15-incher. And I always say, your favorite, you have two favorite bass on tournament day. The first one and the one that completes your limit.
Yes.
The other ones, I don't care what size it is. The first one tells you don't suck as much as you thought. You're not getting skunked. You're at least putting in a 12-incher on the board. And your last one is like, mission accomplished. I got my 5. So, or the fifth one, maybe not your last one. Maybe catch more after that.
Yeah.
I thought, all right, cool. Like, I didn't get skunked. And I started feeling good about myself. And the reason why I feel good about myself is because I said, all right, I'm going to stop and I'm going to start thinking. And I'm going to stop throwing my confidence bait and I'm going to go and think outside the box. Because it's been 7 hours. Nothing is working. Why would it work now? So that gives you confidence knowing like, all right, you made changes and the changes worked out. It's a little bit, the reason why I threw that morning dawn is a conversation that I had 3 or 4 years ago with Rolando Nandin. We were talking about in this podcast, talking about spawning bass. And he said, throw a weightless twig when they're up shallow spawning. I remember telling him there's something about that morning dawn color that just pisses them off. They don't like it. It's too bright. It's annoying to them. And when they see it near their beds, they are going to jump all over it. And I bought them, and I think I tried it once, didn't work. And those someworms have been on my tackle box for 3 or 4 years. And finally, I decided, you know what? I'm going to throw it. So that gives you confidence. And as soon as I caught the first one, it was the female, 50.5 incher. I didn't realize at that time. I started working my way in that little. You've seen this on O.H. Ivey. So you got this. I forgot the name of it, this little plant that grows in West Texas on the water. It has a little flowers in it to pick flowers. If you remember the name of it, anybody in the comment sections know the name of it. So there's this vegetation. Then there's this little channel gap, and then there's the brush, the standing twigs. And then there's the outside. So I was in that little channel between the grass and the twigs. And that's where I caught it.
Yes.
Let it go. I figured I saw the tail and it was bloody. And then I remember another conversation on this podcast with none other than Rolando Nandin telling me about when you catch a bass that's spawning, you're not going to be too unethical and take it away. But instead of just putting it in front of your kayak, put it on the back of your kayak. Give yourself a couple of seconds before he goes back to the bed, because if you took him or her out of the bed, the other one is coming into the bed. And immediately, very next cast, I caught the male of it. It's a little bit smaller. So it's like, all right, this is the male and the female. And now I'm thinking, oh, well, I mean, I got an hour to go. I didn't catch a single fish in 7 hours, but maybe I can catch 3 more in an hour. Yeah. And lo and behold, I started like, well, let me move to the outside of the twigs now and see if I can find bigger ones there. And sure enough, I caught 3. I caught 2 more. Then I had a big one come up. I'm not going to guess, but I'm assuming it would have been maybe somewhere between 17 and 19 inches. But same thing you said, it got wrapped around the twigs. And it was my fault because as soon as I threw it, it hit it right when it hit the water. And I felt the thump, but I was distracted looking at the graph. I'm like, oh, wait, I got a bite. And by the time I set the hook, he already wrapped me. So then I was like, man. And then that was my last Ozark rig because I didn't buy him. I got him at that Dark Horse tackle box. So I think I only had 2 or 3 of them. So then I had
pretty tricky little setup,
weightless, belly weighted hook. I'm like, all right, this is the closest thing I got to that Ozark. And it did not yield the same result, but I would just need 1 more bite. And I finally got like with 20 minutes left after having like an hour, not an hour, about 30 minutes of not catching a bite and kind of losing that last Ozark rig. I was like, the action is not the same with that belly weighted. It's just not, but it was still good enough that got me 1 more bite. And that's how I completed the limit in the last hour.
Right. Yeah, I had the 2 big fish mid-morning, but I knew I needed a limit to do well. And I couldn't get a bite for quite a while. And my decision was to slow down. So I moved out a little bit deeper, a straight bank, about 100 yards from where I'd caught these 2 big ones. And I'd throw the weighted Cinco out there in about 15 foot of water. And I just let it sit there as long as I could stand it. And that's how I caught my last 3 keepers, was doing that just by slowing down.
Do you feel like if you caught 2 24-inchers, right? And the rest I'm assuming were, well, actually, let me look at it right here. So the other
13.
Yeah, like some 15s. And...
Yeah, 15, 15 and a quarter, 14 and a half, and a 13 and a half. Is there any I mean, you still won, of course. So you did what you needed to do to win. Was there at any point any regrets that you felt like, oh, these are a lot small? Like, is there a certain disappointment in the drop off of size, where you're just happy to get your limit?
I was happy to get my limit, but I definitely wanted to get rid of that 13.5 incher. I thought that would probably hurt me. I couldn't do it. That's the only. I got 6 bites, lost one of them. Got 5 fish for the day, and I thought 91 was good. I just didn't know if it was good enough. There was no cell service out there. Couldn't tell what anybody else was doing. I left about 30 minutes before quitting time just so I could figure out how to get my fish on the leaderboard. Then I wanted to get back, get up on top of the hill.
Mayhem leaving that boat ramp.
Yeah, that was worrying me because I knew I'd done well. I didn't know how well I'd done yet, so I left a little early. Tried to fish some main points on the way back in, but they were all covered up with the bass boats and such. So I just decided to come on in and get my fish submitted.
Were you surprised that you won, or you thought maybe?
I really was.
Really?
I thought that I might have won, but I'm that guy that finishes just a little bit behind and just not quite enough to get the win. But
always the bride, over the bridesmaid, always the bridesmaid.
Right? Yeah, but it was my turn this time, and I liked it.
Oh man,
your second win at a tournament? Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, I was just gonna say, man, that would be. I think that would. You catch a 24 and then a 24.5. You filled out your limit, and then I think any of us would be like, all right, well, let me see if I can get rid of this little guy.
Mm-hmm.
But like to catch those two, very quality fish, and then, man, it like the feeling. I can't imagine the feeling. You go catch, fish of that caliber, and then not win.
Yes.
Like that's either a really good tournament or, excuse my language, that's a shitty drive home. Right?
If I'd only caught 4, if I hadn't got that 5th keeper, I wouldn't have placed in the money. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
Won. So they were all key fish. And
did you end up just catching 5?
Sir?
Did you end up just catching 5, or did you caught more?
Just 5? Yes.
Oh. And it's interesting because you caught the 5 that you needed. I remember talking to Michael James Cates, one of the best anglers in Texas. It was funny. He was we were talking at the launch. He's like, "Oh well, I suck at this lake." I'm like, "Michael, we all know you're gonna win it." Turns out he came in second. I think he caught 25 fish. I think he told me.
Wow.
I was like,
that area, because I know exactly where it was at, and I've had some recent run-ins with some people at different tournaments, in regards to like giving each other space. I caught a couple fish. So where he was, it's funny. I won't disclose it. So, but where he was, I had caught probably 2 or 3 roamers in that area, and I was close enough that when a very popular guide that we all know of because of Lake O.H. Ivey pulled up, he was close enough to where I could literally hear him telling his clients, how tough the fishing was and this and that. Well, where Kate's was on, it would have been Friday. Man, I caught 2 or 3 roamers, and then when I went up a little bit shallower, kind of into that 12-foot range, caught them the same way that I did out, in the middle of the lake, just slow dragging a power worm. That's pretty interesting. So I am not shocked to hear that he caught 20 plus fish in that area. And he probably, man, I don't think he moved 100 yards any direction the whole time.
Well, I didn't either. The strange thing is the spot I picked to start, I had it to myself almost all day. 2 bass boats came in. They whipped down the banks, fishing too fast, didn't catch anything left. A kayak came in, fished it, didn't catch anything and left. So I had this spot to myself all day. That's what I like to find. I like throwing maybe strange baits, and I like fishing water that isn't too pressured. even though I thought this spot would be covered up with boats and kayaks all day.
Why did you think it would be? Why did you think it would be so busy there? Like, was it the structure? Was it the
But
area of the lake?
it wasn't far from Elm Creek.
Mhm.
30 minutes, maybe half a mile. Well, probably a mile. It was a creek. It had good structure. It had covered up with bait, bluegills. I just assumed if I didn't get there first, I wouldn't catch anything.
So you thought that because you had identified so many key indicators of it being a high percentage area, that certainly somebody else had to have
Yes.
seen at least a few reasons to be there.
Yes. But worked out in my favor.
I think a lot of the boaters, listen. This is the thing, and I know this is a subject. Peter, you and I were talking about it afterwards. I know this is a touchy subject. Good thing and bad thing about live scope. I'll tell you the good thing is those boarders are no longer a problem if you're beating the bank on a kayak. Like I had, and I don't mean critical. I don't want to put myself on a pedestal here, but I do want to make this comment because I find it so unnatural. So I was in this spot, like we mentioned, like right at where the grass line and the the standing twigs are, that line right there. That's where I was catching them. 100 yards from me, more into the open area. I'm assuming brush piles or some sort of structure. There were about 5 different boats spread out. None of them really close to me, but where I can hear them. Every single one of them probably needed to go to a chiropractor afterwards because it was just like and I stayed there for the last hour, and everybody was just like, I was like, I can never bring myself to do this. And I don't looking down at people you lives. You both of you use live scope and obviously work for you. But this 5 boaters just staring at a screen and just yo-yoing. Like, and I would watch him, I'm like, dude, I just caught 5 fish in the span of an hour, quality fish, one of them being, about a 4-pounder. And this guys have not caught anything. Is like, it works for me. Like, if it wasn't for live scope, those boaters would probably be right where I was. Because what else are you gonna do if you can't live scope them? But it's just a comment that I wanted to make because I don't know, man. I'm interested in at some point getting live scope, but that's what I'm afraid of. That I'm gonna become that angler that is just staring at a screen for 8 hours.
Mhm.
I don't know if and again, I'm not criticizing anyone, much less you guys who are very successful. Russell, you just won a tournament. Peter, you've done great at tournaments. But for you as anglers who have utilized or used live scope, what do you find? Where do you find that balance? Well, you can start with you, Peter.
Go. Oh, well, I was going to say too, for anybody who's tuned in, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, any of the YouTube channels. By the way, so Armando, out of 52 anglers on O.H. Ivey, you finished 15th. By the way, good work.
Very nice.
After going all day.
After skunking for 7 hours, yeah.
That's like the biggest thing to me, man. When you at 1:30 in the afternoon, lines out 3 o'clock, and you have not caught a single fish. There's a long line of people I think would just spin out and their day's done.
I might have been headed to the ramp myself.
Thank you.
I thought about it.
That's not an easy day. That's not an easy day, man. As far as scope goes, it's I think the vast majority of people, and I've been fortunate to talk with a lot of people who are brand new to using live scope or even electronics, and it's the same thing because I have some friends that they just got into kayak fishing, they just put a graph on their kayak, they got side scan. You talk about hunched over staring at a screen, like it's a new thing, and you kind of do get enamored with it, and it really, I hate to say it because I absolutely love going out. I live on Lake Hubbard. I've got to deal with lifetime kayaks. I go out on a paddle kayak, no electronics, 2 rods, and I'm feel like an old man. I'm bitching about people leaving trash up on the shore, and I'm like, hey, look at this bird. Like not even worried about the fishing. I totally squirrel off. But that whole realm of electronics, there's certainly stages that a majority, not all, but a majority of people, they do go through, because even with, a guy just getting his first graph and side scan, they're just going around just staring, looking at all the stuff, right? Like, look at that lay down, look at that rock, look at that ditch, and they'll do that. So with live scope, I think a lot of people go through the same thing, because kind of like Corey said, I mean, when you've, I don't know what the barriers are to get to this level that I'm about to describe, but where I feel that I'm at, just so that I don't speak to anybody else's personal experience, is, you get to that point where it's just a way to more efficiently cover water, right? You're either going by docks and checking stuff, or you're going by trees and you're looking for fish, and you're not just like locked in on it. You see a fish. I mean, I see a fish, I throw at them, 5 or 6 times, and I'm confident enough with my cast and my bait selection, and also my ability to read the reaction of that fish when you do present properly to that fish, to where I'm like, man, 5 or 6 casts, I'm done. It's like a bed fish as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to waste 2-3 hours on that one fish, you might could catch it. But being able to, I love it. JR's like, what scope? It's the devil's juice. Don't worry about it. But like Corey said, man, you're just going around, you kind of panning around, looking, and if you see something, you throw at it, or a lot of times, I can't tell you how many casts I've made at things that I didn't see a fish, and actually probably 4 or 5 on tournament day, where I started noticing that there were fish coming up from the bottom, where there were trees that had a lot of either bait or it was fry, not sure, but you wouldn't see them on scope. But what you would see is that tree full of bait, which you could also consequently, you'd be able to see it. I've seen it on 2D, right? So if we get rid of all the newfangled, ruining fishing technology, right? Like, you go over a tree with 2D and it doesn't have anything in it, you can identify that it's clean. And then you go over a tree and it's probably got it's either bait, shad, fry, whatever in it. You see all the noise in the tree. You can see that on 2D as well. Um, but yeah, you go through those stages where initially you're just completely enamored by it. And you got to imagine a lake that is, it's as popular as O.H. Ivey, right? Super overhyped. A lot of people, I think, would agree. But they're going to go out and they're like, oh, their lives go, and they're just hunched over, like you said. Whereas there's a lot of us that it's just another lake that happens to have a slightly above average population of larger fish. But we're going to go and you're going to use those electronics to try to efficiently cover water. But if you've been doing it for a little while, or you've got enough hours on the graph, it doesn't suck you into it, right? It's like you're out there fishing. It's like another set of eyes. It's like having a co on the back that's helping you fish.
I would say it should be a part of your arsenal, but not your whole arsenal. Is that a good way to describe it? I don't use it. I don't have it.
I'm not against it. Efficient with it, absolutely. It's just another for tournament fishing, right?
And I remember when I first got my kayak, I remember getting a Central T from Bass Pro Shop. Used it for about 6 months. Finally was able to actually catch fish on jerkbaits. I was like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this. I was like, okay, let me buy a fish finder. I bought a Ray Marine. Nice, underrated product, by the way. You don't hear a lot about Ray Marine, but they're really good fish finders as well. Maybe not top of the line like Garmin, but they're really good. Anyways, and I remember going back to where I was when I started, and then I realized, it's because instead of focusing on what I learned on my instincts of, watching structure, on, reading nature, watching the birds, see where the current is, where the wind is. Now I'm staring at a screen, and it wasn't even side scan. This was just down scan. So it doesn't matter if it's forward facing sonar. It could be any type of electronic. But my point that I'm trying to make is, like, you can get so enamored because it's like a toy, right? It's like buying a new car. You want to drive it, you want to use it. It's like, heck, you invested so much money. Forward facing sonar, we're talking $2,000-$3,000. That's not including the batteries and the other accessories you have to attached to it.
$1,000. I gotta. Man, I got mad respect for you, but I gotta. Man, I gotta. The whole premise of like, oh, it's outpriced the average fisherman. Go on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, you'll find it.
Somebody's selling a battery for $100. Somebody's selling an LBS 32 system for $800. I've seen it. They're there under $1,000. So, yeah, just saying.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is like you can get enamored with this, and it's to a detriment to your fishing skills.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Russell, how do you now? I noticed I saw it on the picture. One of the one, I think on the second biggest bat, I can see the background forward facing sonar you were using. How do you implement it? And what to you is your version of having balance between not relying too much of it and not letting take away from fishing? What is your version of that?
Well, when I first got it, I was trying to learn how to use it. I used it a lot. I wasted a lot of time hunched over looking at that screen, chasing a few little fish. And it's just been recently, maybe in the last 3-4 months, that I realized I need to use that to find structure that the fish should be holding in, and then just fish and quit staring at the screen. I actually turned my Garmin off Saturday for a while and just started. I knew where the fish should be holding with the trees they were in, and I just started fishing those trees really slowly with the unit off, because sometimes I wonder if they might get used to that and perceive it as some form of danger.
Yeah, that ping's got a...
Yeah, so I can hear it. I know they can hear it underwater, hundreds of yards away. So, but yeah, I don't use it so much to target a specific fish as I do to find the structure that the fish should be on, and then just try and fish old school without staring at it and then chasing one fish. Even though, sometimes I'll see something out off the bank if I turn it, and I'll throw it a couple casts and see what it does. But I have more success just fishing than chasing a fish with live scope.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's that you just touched on right now. Like, I don't know. I'm excited for fishing. I mean, obviously we're all, pretty waist deep in it, but like there's a lot of people I think that have, their feelings about live scope, and they haven't at least gone through a couple of the stages. They haven't kind of gone through the motions. Whereas you literally just laid out where and how you took this thing and incorporated it into your fishing to enhance your ability to catch fish. Like, man, real quick, and like Corey said too, right? Like some of those little humps and ditches and little drops and stuff, man, they're not on a contour map. They're not on a HD contour map.
Right.
And maybe you didn't spend an hour side scanning, 100 feet out, back and forth and mark every but you go with scope. And while you're not throwing at that individual fish, which is a whole nother conversation, it's a lot more difficult than a lot of people think, unless you find completely unpressured fish. You're like, all right, I know how to fish this structure. I know how to fish this drop off, these trees. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, dude, you went out and freaking had a solid. I'm so stoked that not once, but twice did you catch, some trophy class fish.
Yeah.
It's made me a better fisherman. It's also cost me a lot of time when I first got it, but
yeah, it's a learning curve
tool. I'm not the great fisherman that most of y'all are. Like, Peter, you caught so many fish and I only caught 5. I just happened to be in the right spot to get the right ones. But
that's what matters.
It's definitely made me a better fisherman having it.
What do you think it is? Just the knowledge of what is it about it that makes you a better fisherman? Like, is it on real time, or do you think, Mike? I guess the question that I'm trying to ask is: it make you a better fisherman when you're using it, or are we talking overall? Like, if you were to sell over your live scopes and go back to traditional down scan, would you think you're a better fisherman because of what you've learned using live scope?
I think so. I've always heard that 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water. Live scopes taught me that 100% of the fish live in 100% of the water. They're everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's bass. They seem to be.
That's pretty dang hard to deny.
They're,
That's a
they're
good one.
everywhere, and they don't stick on structure like we've all read in the Bassmasters. They're out roaming. They're moving. Bass don't ever seem to stop moving, from what I've
Maybe
seen.
90% of the biggest fish in the lake reside in 10% of the areas or something like that. There's certainly,
I would agree with that.
but
But
man,
everywhere you drop the thing, there's fish in the water. Where I go, maybe I pick the right spots on the maps. I don't know the high percentage areas, but yeah, there's fish
well, it's
all
kind of like
over.
Armando said, you go out and, you read that environment. Like that's an input for you to then make a decision. What do I do? Where do I go? What do I throw? The same
Mm-hmm.
way that when you look at live scope, that's another input that says, what do I do? What do I throw? Where do I go? That sort of thing. And I mean, your ability to, obviously you've been fishing a long time. And so your ability to start off, light years ahead of where I am in terms of where I'm gonna go fish, is because of your ability to read that environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you fish off of a barge, by the way? Like I took a closer look at your pictures because Armando
Yeah,
said
what's
you
your
could
setup,
see
Russell?
he
Yeah,
could, yeah, what are you fishing off of?
it's that Jackson kayak 360.
Jackson kayak
Yeah,
360.
Jackson.
360. Is it 360 drive on a Jackson kayak?
No,
Oh, is it like the seat is 360?
no. Blue Sky, the Jackson
Oh, yeah,
kayak,
yeah, yeah. We were
Blue
talking
Sky
about it.
360.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that was you?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Were you there in the?
Yeah. I was the one who asked you, hey, is that a
Is that a blue sky?
yeah, is that a blue
Okay.
sky?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was you. All right. It's
Okay.
so dark. I couldn't tell anybody. I could just tell Peter because I can hear his voice. I recognize his voice in Michael James
Yeah.
Kate.
You know,
Okay.
I'm new to kayak fishing. I've always fished out of boats, and I was about ready to give it up. And a good friend of mine, John Brown, he's in a kayak also now, and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna fish a kayak tournament this weekend. I got an extra kayak if you want to borrow it and go with me." And I said, "Sure, that'd be great." And I'm kind of not very limber, and I sat down in that kayak all day, and I could not stand up at the end of the day. I had to crawl out of it onto a dock covered in duck poo, and I said I'd never do this again because it hurt me. And then he sent me a link to that Jackson Blue Sky 360. I said, hey, I think I might be able to do that. So I got it. I bought it last June, and I've been fishing out of it for the last
Were
year.
you, so last year at the Ivey tournament, we were down, out of the Elm Creek ramp, and were you down that way? Were you having some, or was there someone else? And it was kind of, I don't want to say you're having a tough time, but it was kind of like, whether it was the getting used to it thing, so something was going on where it wasn't just a day of fishing. Like, I don't, was something wrong? Not with the kayak or anything, but I guess I don't know if there was something you were struggling with. Maybe it was just fishing. I don't know, but there was. I remember running into a guy last year. I feel like it was at Ivy with a blue sky, and man, the day just seemed like it wasn't coming together or something like that.
That could have been me. I was new to it at that time. That was probably my second or third tournament. I had fished out of a kayak.
Oh, so it was just unfamiliar
Yeah,
with it, kind of getting the
and
feel of things.
I had some physical problems before that, and I got a busted shoulder. I had some balance issues going on from a virus I'd had. So yeah, I wasn't real comfortable on that kayak when I first got it, even though it was probably the most stable platform out there. I couldn't stand up on that without falling over because of my
Oh.
uh, balance issues. But
Hmm.
I've gotten used to it now, so I can't dance on it, but I can stand up on
You can twerk on it.
You can land 2 over 24. Hey, did
That's
that?
like, hey, you get good balance good enough to land those. Hey,
Did you
nothing wrong
meet
with
the
that.
minimum qualifications? I think you did. Did you? By the way, did you
Working in
submit?
your kayak, catching 24 inches.
You're doing all right. You're doing all right. Did you submit those fish, by the way, to the Toyota ShareLunk? Are you familiar with that program?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't submitted them.
Okay,
You
and
should.
if you everybody is entitled to their opinion. So like if you, I know there's a lot of people that have maybe some, and I'm not like a spokesperson for them or anything. I just believe that a lot of these reservoirs would not be what they are without the stocking efforts. And
Yeah.
so I've had some in-depth conversations with, a lot of the people, and if, Cynthia over at ShareLunker, and, a lot of the representatives there, so Toyota sponsors ShareLunker, that, they get a vast majority of their funding from there, and then other sources. But it's not like they have a balance sheet where they can show a return. And so the way that works, and the reason why I try to encourage people to submit, and even outside of ShareLunker season, and even outside of the 13-pound, true ShareLunkers, is because that's what they use to determine. So one, it's like it shows a return on
Data.
their investment for sponsors, and then two, they use that data to determine how they stock those F1 class, those they're mutants. There ain't no two ways about them. I've caught them,
The new
20,
Lone Star
21.
bass.
Oh yeah, I've caught 21 and 22-inch fish that are over 8 pounds. If you look at some of the other West Texas lakes that are very low, that shouldn't have not only the population of fish, but also the class of fish, right? It's that chocolate milk lake. Like, dude, it's stupid. I mean, my 1004 it wasn't even 24 inches. I think it was 23 something, but you didn't even see board. You saw a bump and you saw tail, and there was nothing. I mean, the thing was wider than it was long. That's an F1. That's an F1 class fish. They've grown so aggressively, but they rely on, that angler feedback, and feedback being submitting through it. They make it super easy. Yeah, like Corey said, and hey, Corey, come to Lake Ray Hubbard, because man, I've caught a bunch of 6s and
Don't go to
7s.
Lake Ray Hubbard, Corey.
I need to get
Not on a
I
kayak.
need to get the numbers up for my home lake.
Golly.
We need to get them dropping buckets F1 in Hubbard. But yeah, so there's an app. It's super easy. You take, your photos on the board, photo of angler holding fish with a separate, and any of all that stuff. But that's what they use it. So, even if obviously Ivey doesn't, we're not doing that, but maybe on some of your home lakes down there, you might consider doing that, because it will influence how much they start. Yeah, they try to spread it around. But I mean, if you then submitting a couple over 8, what it means to them is that it shows the existence of an environment that can not only grow but also sustain that larger class of fish, right? If they don't get any feedback from somebody's lake, oh, maybe people are catching them, but they can only go off that data.
Yeah.
And so if you're providing that data, they already know O.H. Ivey. I'm not worried about it. But maybe some of your lakes down south, consider that, because that's how they. Yeah,
That's good information.
Maybe get somebody else other than Derek Miller from the kayak fishing community on the ShareLunker. Kim Gray, I think, is the other name of the other gentleman.
What's that?
Good old Fairfield.
Oh, bless. Yeah.
I remember looking up before Fairfield closed, looking up the ShareLunker program. It was like Derek Miller, Milliken Jones, Derek Miller. I'm like, good Lord. And I asked him one, he's like, they're all Fairfield. God, I hate that we lost that lake.
Yeah, that was an interesting place for sure.
Yeah.
Did you fish it through the like when it was a power plant lake, all the reds?
No.
Yeah,
there were reds there, right?
So some of the guys that I've been fortunate enough to fish with were fishing it back when it was power plant lake, hot water and all that jazz. And dude, they'd go That's why they went there. They didn't go there to bass fish.
Have you fished it? Did you ever fish it, Russell?
No, I have not.
Oh
No.
my God, you missed. That is single-handedly the best lake in Texas. It was until we lost it, but I've never had a bad day. And I didn't go as much because I felt like I've never learned anything. Because it doesn't matter what you throw, you're gonna catch a 6-7 pounder. I
Yeah.
caught I don't weigh them. I just catch board. I measured them and 20, I think it was 23 inches. The same bass at the same spot a year apart.
Yeah.
I remember going because somebody gave me wrong intel and they told me that you can go up the channel where it says do not cross because their point of view was like, well, the power plant is not there anymore, so those signs are not. And I went up that channel and it was the best day of fishing I've ever had. Like it was literally calling my shots. It's like I lost about half of what I caught and I didn't even care because I knew if I lost like a 5-pounder, I just needed to cast again. It'll catch another one.
Yeah.
And then I found out through the park ranger when he asked me how I was doing. Oh, I went up that channel, man. That was awesome. And he's like, "Did you not read the signs?" I told him, yeah, but they told me because the power plant is no longer, it's decommissioned. He's like, no, you still cannot. He says, if we would have seen you there, would have been an $800 fine. I'm like, well, you can't retroactively give me a fine. He's like, no, don't worry about it. You're good.
It was still a great day of fishing.
Oh my God. Fairfield is like, it's just a bass angler.
It's one of those lakes that set up
amazing
textbook, right? So Russell, like you're saying, all the old stuff that you read in Bassmaster, it's like there's a lot of it that we've proven not true, but there's a lot of it that for the new angler, that person with less than a year of experience, which, by the way, that's 995 anglers out of 1,000. Where you had your points, you had your grass edges, you had your trees, you had suspended fish, you had the fish on rocks. It was I don't have a ton of experience out there as compared to some of my friends who, like I said, they were out there back in the days where they went there to go catch reds. But every single time somebody brings up that lake, there's a story about how this and that and the other thing. And if you go through the Sherlunker archives for that lake,
Derek Miller and Jim
it's
Gray.
stupid. Yeah, it is
all of them. That's
ridiculous. All of them. Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's interesting to think about that stuff in the way that it relates to O.H. Ivey and any of the other lakes, just because it's an O.H. Ivey recap is like, that place. I made a post like a week before, and of course there were some people that, talked about how it's overhyped and all that and how, they don't want to drive out to West Texas. Yeah. Yeah. But, the fact still remains is that, yes, you can go out to East Texas and catch some big fish. But man, you can't deny when a lake has an above average population of that 24-inch plus trophy class fish and the ingredients, that go into it. So, it's kind of like the reason why people get enamored with live scope, right? Is you take somebody that says that they enjoy fishing, but if they're not catching if they're not catching a fish in an hour, they're ready to go home. You put a live scope screen in front of their face and show them that they're around fish. Mm-hmm. They'll go all day without catching a fish, but they'll never ask to go home. Yeah. Just knowing, right? So that being human nature, yeah, well, of course I want to go to O.H. Ivey where the potential is above average, and stuff like that. I mean, it's, I don't know if that's human psychology, but certainly, I've seen that in real life where, a guy didn't catch anything for an hour and he's like, kind of hoo-hawing around, looking at the clock, maybe messing with their phone a bit more. Oh no, he put him on a boat with a live sub screen. That dude is like all day long, looking up and realizing the sun's going down. Like,
if you can't see under the water, you think you're fishing the Dead Sea.
Yeah,
there's nothing around me. But yeah, like you say, show them the fish on the scope. They'll keep trying.
Yep. Okay. It's the potential of it's there, and that's we're get enamored with the potential. The what if.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
gentlemen, I've had you for an hour and 30 minutes. Russell, I know you're not a big social media guy or anything, but do you have any sponsors? Anybody you want to thank as far as bass fishing?
My wife, she sponsors me. She lets
There
me
you
go
go.
fishing whenever I want to. So, yeah, no, I don't have any sponsors, but I don't try. You know, I don't get into the social media too hard. I was a little leery of doing this just because fear of the unknown. I've never done anything like this, but hey, it's worked out great. You've been good and made it easy on me. So,
Oh, talking
Yeah.
about being on the podcast? Well, you go. This
yeah,
is your first taste of social media.
yes.
Big things are coming for you.
Hey, before you cut it off, I know it's an hour and a half, but only your committed folks are still here, probably, Armando.
Yes, 5,
Russell.
the few, the proud, the
That's
fans.
right. Russell, we going down to Travis.
Right.
I've never been there. Are
I
you looking forward to that event?
Not really, because the lake is so low. I think there's only one place to launch, and that's up the river at Pace Bend.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
So everybody's going to be in the same area, I believe. You know, I live 30 minutes from Travis, but I don't fish it often. I go to LBJ, Steelhouse, Inks. They fish better, but from what I hear, Travis is fishing really good. Lots of number. It's always been a numbers lake. You can go out and catch 50 fish. They seem to be getting bigger than they used to be. So, you know, it might take 90 inches to win Travis. So,
Okay.
but
I mean,
I haven't been out there in a long time. So,
I don't want to hear that. That's you. You gotta. What an invaluable resource. Somebody that's grown up and fished that all their life to be able to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, that amount of experience on it, and being able to read those conditions that way, I think is definitely interesting. I love that stuff, man.
yeah.
I'd be up till 4 in the morning talking about that type of stuff.
I've fished it or been on it with my dad since uh, the early 70s, 1970s. And it's a deep, clear, rocky lake. And we used to joke about finding the hydrilla and finding the bass. Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, hydrilla showed up in Lake Travis, which is really crazy. I don't know if it's on the upper end, but I know it's down on the lower end. But I don't think you can launch down there. It's all the parks and ramps are closed down because of the low lake levels. So
Remind me to edit out this part, Peter, before I release that on the podcast.
Hey, man,
We don't want that information.
no, and thank you, dude. I feel so lucky that you randomly hit me up for some color commentary because I mean, talking to guys, that have fished a lake for Russell, I respectfully longer than I've been alive, uh, is cool, man. That's part of fishing heritage and being able to have seen it change like that. All these years later, you think you was gonna go out and fish it on a plastic boat?
no, never dreamed of fishing out of a plastic boat.
There you
That's
go.
cool, man. Well, I
Might
hope to see
happen.
you down there. Mondo, you even considering it?
No, yeah, I am. I actually wanted to go a couple of days of pre-fishing, but my sister-in-law lives there, and then my wife wants to be like, "Well, I want to go." I'm like, "Well," but she doesn't get off till Friday, so I was like, "Yes." So I may just go fishing blind. I never really fished it. Like I said, my sister-in-law lives there, so her husband, well, my sister and her husband, they own like a little party boat. Um, and he brought the rods, was just spinning rods with some jig heads. And we anchored in he didn't have the boat back then. We rented a pontoon. We anchored into the shore in this little party cove, and everybody was drinking. I was just bored, so I decided to grab that spinning rod and start throwing that paddle tail swim jig, and I actually caught a 14-inch bass. I didn't think I was gonna catch anything. It was just a flat, no grass, nothing. It was full of jet skis. It was full of boat. It was full of people drinking on the water. So I was like, can't believe
And
I
yet
caught a
there
bass
it
here.
was.
I was like, can't believe I caught a bass here. But I did. That's my only experience, and I don't even remember where that was because I haven't been to that lake in 4 or 5 years.
Our
Yeah,
state fish
but-
is out there too, isn't it?
What?
Our state fish. Don't they got Guadalupe?
Guadalupe.
Yeah, they got quads out there.
Yeah. Lots
Yeah,
of
but they're small.
That's okay.
They fight hard.
Neat.
Yeah, they do. That's true. They do. All right, Peter. Before I let you all go, I know you have some business partners and you have your social media. Where can people follow your social media and plug in whoever you want to plug in?
Man, my stuff is all My Chaotic Fishing, and obviously, my friends and family who whether they're putting up with me or they're, actively supporting me, is huge for my learning curve, my personal experience, and also Lake Pro Tackle. Man, free shipping over $50. Sam and Tim up there are both ate up by fishing. If you see any of them on social media, they're taking the John boat out after work to go fish Louisville and all that jazz. So they're anglers. They get a lot of tough stuff, and man, it's worth checking out. Hit up lakeprotackle.com and get you some of that hard to find stuff, and they'll get it to your house real quick.
Appreciate that. And for those that stayed here, and those that comment, DLE, Ellie Self, Corey, thank you, Corey. You're always great supporting the podcast and my social media. I can't thank you enough. The Creek Crawler, who else? JR Mockaby, everybody that comment, anybody who's watching. Remember, you can follow us on Bass Kayak and Beer social media, Facebook, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you're into podcasts, you can listen to our podcast. This episode usually airs on Mondays. And we also have the Advanced Kayak Angler with Kurt Smith that airs every Wednesday. And this week's episode is pretty interesting. Bailey Eichbrecht from the Serious Angler podcast, he talks about how to use apps to help you become a better angler. Very, very good episode. Very good interview by Kurt. Very good information shared by our special guest, Bailey Eichbrecht. So go check it out. It's on every podcast streaming platform that's out there. So thank you so much for watching. If you're going to be on the water, please wear your PFDs. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on the podcast. Russell, Peter, I appreciate it. And
Thank you, sir.
have a great night,
My
everyone.
pleasure. Thank you.
Peace out.